Hello everybody, this is the grade 12 theory lesson. This is unit 6B and today's topic is jazz chord tensions. This is the final theory unit for grade 12 and it's a longer one, so we'll get started on this one. So tensions. So chords are extensions, or tensions are extensions to chords built upwards past the seventh. So everything we've been looking at so far with chords has been contained with the octave. Remember back to grade 11, with the exception of the 6-9 chord, which extended above. But tensions are, we keep extending that basic chord with the root, third, fifth, seventh, and then we just keep building on top of it. We can go all the way up to 13. Can't go any higher than that because we just start to repeat the notes again. So the upper notes in this type of chord are called tensions due to the harmonic dissonance they add to the sound of the chord. So past the seventh, we get the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th. And you'll notice the same number relationship as in compound intervals. Tensions are considered to be natural when they are diatonic to the major scale of the chord root, regardless of if it is a major or a minor chord. That's a very important point to remember. We're going to see some examples in this lesson. So, tensions can be altered by lowering or raising them by a semitone. And then below we've got the notes of a chord with the normal tensions shown in relation to C major. Altered fifths have been included in this chart as well, even though they are on the fifth note, or the fifth, not note above the seventh. So, starting at the very bottom, I'll just go through this chart, but at the very bottom of that chart, on the left-hand column, you see we start 1, and then we have our third and our fifth, our basic triad, then we add a seventh, we keep building, we get the 9th, and then we get the 11th, and then finally we get the 13th. So you can see an interesting thing has taken place here. So by the time, if we compare it to the natural tensions, if we look at every single note that is in that column under natural tension, you will realize that it's every single note of C major in a different sequence, but all of the notes that are found in C major are found with all of these tensions. So, for example, a C13 chord, which I'll play an example of what that one sounds like. So it's just, this piano's a bit out of tune, but that's all of the notes in C major. Rather than doing this, we spread it all out to get all of our different thirds, and we get to hear all of the different nuances. So it's actually a C major 13 as an example, is actually a C major 7 chord with a D minor triad added on top of it. So there you go. Lowered tensions you can see in the next column. We can alter some of those the different notes. So the root, the third, those are simply just going to be chord tones, and the seventh as well. Now we know that, and we're referencing in chord tones as being either major or minor. So root to third, minor third, or seventh, minor seventh, major seventh isn't going to have a significant difference, unlike the fifth when we start to add that type of a tension, the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th. So you can see we can lower fifths, 9ths, and 13ths. We don't typically lower 11ths because if we had an F natural, well, we'd be basically, an F flat rather, we'd have simply a duplication of a third, right? The E natural for thinking C as our example. So that not really effective. Raised tensions, we can raise the 5th, the 9th, and the 11th. But to have a raised 13th, again, it's going to be a duplication of a note. We're going to get an A natural if we raise that, go to an A sharp, which is a B flat, and then again, that can be thought of as being, well, simply that's just a dominant, right? So dissonance, generally tensions of semitone above chord tones are not used to their high dissonance level. And the following is a list of 4-note chords with the tensions that are most often associated with them. Only one tension per number will be used. For example, either a flat 13 or a natural 13, but not both. And the only exception is the dominant 7 chord. And you can actually have flat 9 and sharp 9 both used together.
Tartio Adamawakan, please report to the main office. Tartio Adamawakan to the main office, please.
There you go, a little semblance of what Westmount's life, what Westmount is like here, even during the pandemic. Okay, so so on this chart you can see as we go from left to right, we're getting fairly consonant. So 6-9 again, that's major pentatonic, really, right? We all of those notes were starting in grade 9. As we start moving to the right a little bit further, major 7th, adding a slight amount of dissonance, minor 7th, minor 7, flat 5, half diminished. Then we go major 7, and then you can see dominant 7th, and then flat 9, and then 7th with sharp 5. So great dissonance by the time. So it's kind of a very mild to extremely spicy, if you want to think of it like that, as you move from left to right in terms of the dissonant levels of the chords themselves. So chords and their associated scales. Every chord that we're going to look at today, and all of the chords, chords and tensions are written in a linear pattern. We get to create a scale. So therefore, chords and scales that share the same pitches are associated together. It's a very useful combination when either composing or improvising. So we'll go through our examples. So majors, C6, 9, as we just mentioned, that's pentatonic. It's got the ninth is part of that scale, even though it's written as the major second above the tonic. It's still considered to be the scale that's associated, because it's the same note, just an octave lower in this case. So when we write out that scale, C, D, E, G, A, C as our major pentatonic scale, and again, the 6 and the 9. 6 is in reference to the A. There is no 4th, there is no F, there is no 7th, there's no B. And the 9th is, again, that's the D, an octave, just an octave higher. So you can see C pentatonic scale works really well with that chord. The C major 7, as an example. Again, fairly straightforward. It's just a C major scale. All of the notes of C major will work well. We still avoid the 4th as a part of the chord, though, because it is still quite dissonant. And it's used, but it can be used as a directional pitch when we're thinking of things melodically going through. So the major scale works well over the major 7 chord. A major scale, or a major C major 7 chord with a sharp 11, remember, just a compound interval. Take 7 away from that 11, you get a raised 4th. Well, as soon as you see something with a raised 4th, automatically you can start thinking in terms of modes again, right? So what scale would be associated with? Well, Lydian is the one. It's a major scale with a raised 4th. It's going to work perfectly for this case. So sharp 11 chords, Lydian works well. It can be used harmonically as well as melodically in this case. And then we can look at some minor examples. So we have C minor 7 with the natural 9th, 11th, and 13th. Remember that these chord tones aren't going to be altered relative to the key. So C minor triad with a minor 7th, but then we're going to get on top of that a D natural, an F natural, and an A natural on the very top. Again, that's in reference to the fact that even though the root and the basic triad is minor, it's still going to be major 9, 11, and 13 on these, unless there's an actual indication otherwise. So C minor 7, what works well for this? Well, the Dorian scale works well with the raised 6th for this scale. Okay, and that's the raised 6th in this case is the A natural. So C minor 7, again, look at your bottom note, look at your very top note. That interval is a major 6th. And so that's why Dorian works so well, is because it is a minor scale, but has a raised 6th in it. So it works very well in this situation. You could use minor pentatonic as well, just to take the 9th and the 13th away from the equation, and it would work just as fine. If we look at the next example, C minor 7, flat 5, and then we have our extensions that can go. So we could do the flat 9, 11, we can do flat 13. You can do natural 9s. There's different things you can do with that. The core part of this, in terms of identifying what scale works well with a C half diminished chord or any half diminished chord, the answer is Locrian. Because, it contains those notes. So we have C minor with the flat 5. We've got our G flat. Locrian has a flat 2 and a flat 5. So there's our flat 5 already. The chord actually specifies C. And if you look at the other, so C flat 5, okay, well, there's a G flat there. Locrian contains that. We also know that we need to have a flat 2. Well, in this particular example, we've got a flat 9, which is a flat 2, just an octave higher. So the D flat is found here as well. So Locrian will work. Is a great example of a scale to improvise with half diminished chords. You could use it, again, with a natural 9 to give a different sense of dissonance, but it works with the flat 9 a little bit more readily, I guess, discernible. You can really see the highlights that's taking place. Dominance. So any dominance chord, a mixed Lydian scale works beautifully. Again, it's got the lowered 7th, or it's a major scale. With a lowered 7th, and that works well with the C dominant or any dominant 7th, because it is a minor 7th above the root note. We also have things such as altered dominants to create greater dissonance. The altered dominant chord either minor tonalities or stronger distance, or dissonance rather. So you can see in the next, so C7, the alt, we've taken the fifth out of the equation. But we've added, so we've got our minor 7, so there's our dominant 7, C dominant 7, C7, C to B flat. But then on top, alternating alter dominants on top of that. So we can have the D flat, we can have an F sharp, we can have an A flat, we could also do D sharp, we could do F sharp, we could do A flat on top. And so the altered scale can work with this one. So C to D flat, and moving up, the semitone tone pattern alters a little bit. So D flat, minor second, D flat to D sharp. That's actually going up 2 steps, a major second, and 1 step. So you can see the scale is called different names, altered dominant or the diminished whole tone scale. And you can also see it written with enharmonic alterations, but don't worry about that for now. You can just see how it's working its way melodically through there. And then we have symmetrical chords and scales. So our diminished, if you remember from last year, C diminished 6, C diminished 7, it's the same chord when you play them. They're written differently though. So C diminished with the 6, remember that's referring to a major 6th above a C. So it would be an A natural versus C diminished 7th. This is the fully diminished 7th chord. So it does have the diminished 5th and a diminished 7th. And then you compare those two, and you realize that a B double flat enharmonically sounds the same as an A natural, which is why C diminished 6th and C diminished 7th both sound the same. You can spell them either way, and it's common practice again to repeat the octave just to help to clarify the overall tonic of the chord. So the diminished scale going by the half whole scale, going semitone, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, will allow for a useful scale that can go with the diminished chords. And then finally we've got the augmented chord, so C augmented 7th in this case. We've got just a normal 9. We have a sharp 11 to it. Can be done in this case, and that's the whole tone scale. Or it can be just simply C augmented. We don't need to have the tensions or the extensions added to it. But it's going whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, all the way up. And you can see that, it's lending itself very well to this chord. When using the straight augmented, write the octave in to make a 4-note chord, but it can work too. Okay. So we're going to go through a couple of examples. I've got them on the board in front of me. The first question is saying, write the listed tensions in brackets for the given chord. So we're going to ignore the minor 7 flat 5, the minor 7, the augmented 7th, and we're simply going to focus in on the root note of the chord and then what the tension is afterwards. So, first example, C. So what's the sharp 11 above a C? Well, let's take that sharp 11, let's reduce it from a compound interval, let's take 7 away, let's get a 4. So what's the fourth note? So what's the sharp 4, the raised fourth of this chord, or C major? And we know about C major, what's the fourth note? It's F, but we need to make it sharp. So it's actually...
Would Mr. Bonato please contact the main office? Mr. Bonato, please contact the main office.
So the raised fourth above a C, the sharp 11 of C major 7 is the F sharp. So that's the note we're after in this question. Similar to the next question, B flat 7. Okay, it's B flat dominant 7th with a raised, with a sharp 9 on top of it. So sharp 9, take 7 away from that number. What's this? A raised second note above a B flat? Well, that would be B flat, and the second note that's raised by a semitone. So rather than having it as a C natural, that one's going to be a C sharp. So there's your sharp 9 for that chord. So that's all we're doing with those. You just go through those, fairly straightforward. Just focus in on the number in brackets for the answers for those questions. Next set of questions, you've got to write the following chords and their tensions, and then draw the scale that goes with them. So in this first example, we have an E flat, 6, 9. Right away, pentatonic. Okay, so you'll start to recognize these patterns, what these different things are referring to. So E flat, well, it's an E flat major triad. We need to add the 6th note, which is C, and then we need to add the 9th note, which is F. So there we go. There's E flat 6 over 9, and then after that, we're just going to simply draw in the scale that goes with that. So E flat, F, G, B flat, C, and E flat. So there's the major pentatonic scale that goes with the 6/9 chord in E flat. No fourth, no seventh, but all of the other notes are contained within that chord. And then finally, we'll do one more example. This time we'll go to the bass clef. So we're asked to draw B minor 7 flat 5 chord. And again, we'll just use accidentals when we're doing this. So B minor, F, B to an F sharp would be perfect fifth. We need to have the flat 5. So B, D, F, and then we need the 7th on top of it. And so we're left with a B minor 7 flat 5 chord. And then we're just going to draw the scale that goes with that. We'll write the full octave for this one as well. So going back, so B minor, we can include a key signature on this one, but we won't worry about that one. So, but B minor would have our 2 sharps. So we have our flat 2. Above a B natural is a C natural. And we need to have a flat 2 and a flat 5. A B to D natural is a flat 5. And then there's, on top of that, a B to an F is the flat 5. And then the 7th on top of that, minor 7th, is a reference to the A natural. Okay, so B minor 7, flat 5, the Locrian scale works on that example. There we have it. So there's all of the theory units for grade 12. And the rest of the guide work that you have here can be completed and then submitted. After this question, you're asked to analyze a melody using the chord tones and the melody that follows. So this is an example of what a lead sheet looks like when it's in a jazz notebook. So this tune, it's got the chords written above the head. Bonus marks if you can name that tune. Some of you jazz players will recognize it. But basically, so the reference of this one, so C major 7 is referring to everything in those first 2 bars, including the beat 1 of the 3rd bar, until you get to the G sharp, and then you notice above that there's a D7 with a sharp 11 written above it. So that's where the chord's actually changing. So the first 2 bars and first half of the first beat of the 3rd bar, you are all of the notes in that melody are in reference to the C major 7. So when you're analyzing those tones in reference to that, you're going to be referring back to it. So C major 7, your first note's a G, so that's a 5. And then you have to ask yourself, is this the chord tone? Is it a tension or is it non-chord tone? And this one is a chord tone. There's a G natural in C major 7, so that's going to be a 5 with a CT. Carry it across to bar 2, G as well, and the 8th note, same thing. Then you go to E, dotted quarter note, that's also a chord tone, that's the 3rd. And then G, 5 chord tone, and then the C, that's also a chord tone, that's the 1. So you can see, and then later on, you can check your work if you go to the very bottom. All of the answers are here. And then we have, we'll just keep going. So chord tone again, back to E. So those first notes, they're all chord tones of C major 7. And then D7 sharp 11. So D7, now we're changing chords. So what is the raised fourth of the D dominant 7? The answer is a G sharp, and that's why for this one, so the G sharp, you're going to label this one as a tension, and that's the sharp 11. Even though it's an octave lower, well, actually we don't really have that information, I suppose. So, but it's still the same note. So it's a sharp 11, that's going to be a tension, because again, tensions are in reference to notes that are written above the octave, and this one is certainly that case. So you'll go through the rest and you'll just identify what's taking place. And this is, again, this is great practice for those looking to learn improvisation and how to get beyond or see the relationships between chords and scales, but also seeing the relationship with the melody and the chords themselves, and how the chords help to highlight the melody and what's taking place. This tune, Take the A Train, it's a great standard because it's an unusual one. Just in a quick nutshell, most chord changes, turnarounds, they go 2-5-1. So this case, major key, C major, we're going to go to the 2 chord, and you can see before the first ending we've got that. We've got D minor 7, that's the 2 chord, and then we go G dominant 7, that's the 5 chord, and then we go C major 7, that's the root chord, so 2-5-1. and then we go back and do it all over again. But if the second chord of A train is actually a dominant seventh with a raised fourth, so it's a major third triad with a sharp 11 on top of it. So it's very unusual. It's not something that might be expected. But then the following bar, then it goes back to the two chords. So A train is a great tune for that. It's taking something that's familiar, but it's embellishing it and adding a new twist to it. And that's anyway. So you're doing that for this example. You're going to be going through the melody and analyzing the chords in relation to that melody. So there we have it. There is 6B, and that's your theory question. So get those ones into the Dropbox, and that's it. Thanks, everyone.